Hey, I thought I would mention something I can probably do today. Um, if it doesn't rain, well, if it rains, it'll definitely be no problem. But if it does not rain, I got some things I got to do this morning. But when I return, I will try to get onto this. I know people have asked about this, about making slides, and I started making my slides differently. Um, I started doing it this way: add a curved path. You'll see a little path there. You can't do nothing with it till you go into edit mode. And then looking at a like perfect side view, you can see, you can select these little nodes and move them about. Now the black line is your path, and the orange nodes are simply the adjusters, whatever you want to call them. You can hit E on the keyboard to extend the path, and you can do that on the other end as well. I wouldn't recommend you do this from a view such as this because you'll get, I don't know, all off to the side and everything, unless that's what you want. And once you've determined that you are satisfied with the path, you would go back to object mode. You convert to a mesh. I mean, maybe you can do that in edit mode. Always just go back to object mode. And you'll see you get all these little nodes once you convert it to a mesh. Now to make it three-dimensional, you can go back to edit mode, hit A to select all, then you can extrude region. I always use the XYZ axis so I can specify only go that way. And that'd probably be a bad slide right there. You'd probably bottom out, or you mess your bumpers up, which that's not a problem. You can fix that. You can simply turn on um, proportional editing, go to a side view, select the nodes that you want, start to move them, but don't forget to turn on X-ray, move your nodes, and then once you start moving, you get the circle. You see page up, page down. We'll adjust the area of influence, so you can make little adjustments. And that's just the way that I do it. It's probably an easier way to do it. I'm pretty sure you can probably do this in an edit mode fashion where uh, I just messed this thing all up, didn't I? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Alright, so then you also got the option you can add some loop cuts this direction. This will allow it to have more flexibility so that you can go back to object mode and you can add a modifier like simple deform, and you can bend it and stretch it depending on which axis you want to bend or twist. Now that's twist. This is bend. You know, depending on what it is you want. You know, you can do all. And if you like what you do, you can just apply it, and that'll lock it in. And then of course you want to smooth it, shade it smooth. You can shade it smooth. Then you do something like I do, import in like one of the cars from the game, like I have specifically just for scale purposes, so I can say, oh, okay, well that's the truck, so I know I need to make this about this big. You know, you say, well, my ass will fall off the side of that pretty easily. Well, it's no problem. We got you covered. You can go into edit mode. You can turn on X-ray, get like you a perfect front view. If you've made these loop cuts, you can add a few extra for a little more smoothness. Don't forget to undo your loop cutter. Say pick these vertices, hold shift, pick these vertices, hit G on the keyboard to move, and then hit Z to move only up and down. And as long as your proportional editing is on, you can adjust the area of influence. So you can make you a nice place to slide through the middle, not worry so much about falling off the sides. And anytime you make anything that you want to import into the game that you plan to drive on, you always need to check your face orientation. See, this is correct. If it was red, you would be in the trouble. You'd be falling through it. If it's a plane, you'd be falling through it. If it's a solid object, you'd be it would eat the car. So this looks good. I can go into texturing later using the plugin, the Blender Kit plugin. It allows you to add many different kinds of textures to your object, depending on what it is that you are going for. Just keep in mind these textures are complex shaders that are not game ready. Some of these are more complex than others depending on the material, but they have to be baked. You have to bake them, which is what I would have to go into explaining. I attempted to explain this yesterday in a video, and for whatever reason, whichever one I decided to bake, it was taking like 30 minutes to bake it. I gave up on it. But there's a lot of cool textures in here. There's a lot of cool ones. Raw meat, which there's a little issue with the UVs, which I haven't corrected. I haven't even messed with the UVs. You see where the UVs are. You have to fix the UVs, which I didn't fix them yet. They're still all screwed up. Now they're correct. Something like that. Let's see. There's a lot of cool materials, like I said. A lot of really cool ones in there. Some are more so cartoony in nature. For those that like cartoon type of things, which it looks like every time I apply a texture, it decides it wants to give it its own UVs. That's odd. Or I'm a dumbass one and don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, so you see there's a lot of things you can do in here. And of course exporting this to the game wouldn't be a problem at all. You would just, for those that like to just export, this would be your new texture. Some of y'all just prefer to use the in-game collision mesh detection system thing, in the vehicle or the inspector window for the object. So like if we wanted to send this to the game as a DAE, I'll just stick it in the putt-putt level. And let's call it slide. I may use it for the next putt-putt hole. Like about 70 something people watched that video. A few people liked it, so maybe I'll make another hole for it. So we just need to make a new texture. But you can do that in the game. A lot of you ain't interested in sharing stuff between levels or sharing levels. You're just interested in making videos, and the easiest way to make a texture for people like that is just to use the game editor. I prefer to just manually edit a material file and stick it in there, but I can see that being a pain in the ass for some people. It's a pain in the ass for me sometimes. It's just different ways of making things, I reckon. Everybody's got different preferences. It's like cooking. You can ask 25 people how to cook and they'll all tell you something different. So you just go into here and make your new material first. New material. I spelled it right. I gotta double check. I'm getting bad about that. New texture. See, look, good thing good thing that I looked. New texture. Now I wouldn't use this often because then you'll have duplicates of new textures. Now just save this. So now when I import in this object, and do make your texture first. Then you have an issue where a red texture, and then you won't fix it unless you reload the level. So, but don't get excited because that pretty texture in Blender is not baked. It will not look right. So all you're going to get now is just a slide with a no texture. Well, apparently I did something wrong. What did I do? Well, it's good you seen that error, because it happens to the best of us. I'm far from the best, so it happens to me quite a damn bit. That's damn odd. I was off to such a great start. Such a great start. This is the collision type. You just change it to visible mesh final. Now let's see what happened with our texture. Mr. Texture. New texture. Yeah, it's new. It's new, but it's been used before. It's a no material texture. Let me reload the game. I'll save that there. I ain't not sure what the hell happened. I just woke up, so I blame being sleepy. Well, not sleepy. Not focused yet. That'd be the word. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Usually, if you make the texture first, you can import in the asset, and it'll be fine. But if that happens to you, then you get everything right, just reload the level. But like I said, this will not work without the texture being baked to it. Which is something I'd have to explain more in detail. Because honestly, I had a little issue with it yesterday, trying to get a baked texture to look good, because these are procedural textures for the most part, and the way you bake them can be a little tricky. I had just, hell, I might as well just explain it. Shit, I might as well go ahead and explain it. I'm already talking about it. Like, I'd duplicate the object, and I'd name the other object, like, say, newslide. Now to bake something, I'll just rename this to textured slide. So you know you're going from the textured slide to the new slide. But to bake, you need to have your render engine set to cycles, which is here. I use my GPU to compute, and I will not let it render 4096 samples. I'll just do like 128. And then see down here you get the bake option. Now you don't want to hit bake now, or you just be baking over the texture that's already in there. So you go into shader, and you see this complex shader here for this texture. Well, you're going to be just adding a texture, image texture here. Well, anywhere in here, doesn't matter. You know, new. We'll just do. This is where you got to kind of use your brain a little. Now, this object is like rectangular in shape, and it may be like a 4:1 ratio. So I would make the texture something like. Now here's the other thing, which is width, which is height. Let's just try 512 actually, let's try 256 by 1024. If you just render a box, it's going to crunch it all together, I would think. I hate doing things 2-3 times. 128 by, no, it's at 256 by 1024. I don't need, well, maybe we do need alpha channel. Let's go back over to here and bake. I think it was so slow yesterday because I had multiple things running. See, that's a combined bake with the lighting, the indirect lighting and all that stuff. I would say if you want to do that, where you're using everything to turn on the render shader so you can see how it would look rendered, and as you can see, that's very dark. So what I'll do is in this Blender kit is I'll pick a HDRI background so that the object is lit by real lights, like how movies light things when they do CG stuff. I don't know any other way to explain it. It's like real ray traced lighting. When you find one that's suitable for the environment you're going to be putting your slide in, maybe your slide's out here, you know, in a place like this. That'd be great. You don't necessarily need a 8192 light map. It's just something that would give it the kind of lighting that would match the scene you're putting your slide in. Maybe that's still too dark for some people. You can just find different ones till you find one that lights it up the way you want it lit. Or you can make your own lighting in Blender. You don't have to do this method. You say maybe 8, that'll work for me. Well, now you just bake with all these. Well, I think it's not being baked are normals, but I wouldn't need normals because this is flat plane. I don't get any type of 3D geometry or anything out of it. This is a new one here. It matches the UVs that I unwrapped earlier. But see, you get these other little things in here, like these. That's because it's doing glossy, diffuse, transmission, emission, everything in one thing. Which if you really wanted to do a really awesome texture, you would need to bake all these separately, and you would need to make a PBR material, which this has ambient occlusion, it's got your roughness, emission, diffuse, glossy, transmission, environmental reflections. It's got everything. It can be time consuming. Like if you want to render this like better quality, like 1024 by say 4096, which that's what I would render it at. It's going to be longer depending on your GPU or CPU, depending on what you are using. It can take a long time. This is one of the things where I know I need to do something. I'll render them back later. I think if I had 2 computers, that's probably what I would use one for like things that take a long time. Baking high resolution textures. Also, I think a lot of my speed is memory related. When you do rendering, you like more than 16 gigs of RAM. Look, I've got a damn game running, like I said I did yesterday, which probably is eating away at the performance. I don't know. Yeah, one of these textures yesterday. I remember one of these. I'm not sure which one it was. I had like 30 minutes and it was so. One of these also. This one turned out really cool. It's a shader. Kind of looked like this weird blurry glass. But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff here: lava, ice, plastics. I've used it before. This one's really nice too. It's really, really great. Almost done. Don't worry, I'm not ready anymore. There's only one here. Here all day. Almost there. you'll see it look a lot better. Now, if I had it rendering more than 128 samples, it would be even better, but that'd take a very long time. All right, we'll save this. I normally convert these PNGs to DDSs, but I'm not, for sake of time, not doing that. I was correct to render in alpha, since it is transparent in places. You would want that alpha transparency so you can make the object transparent in the game. So we'll save as here, save as. Go to our, where our put is here, and we'll just call this, I don't know, metal slide, I don't know. Just leave all that. Ain't worried about the compression or anything like that. Let's see, back into here, material editor, color map, art, new slide, metal slide. Alright, now you gotta do your transparencies. So you go into your advanced. You can use alpha clip, or you can use just like a lerp alpha. Now I realize this does not look as good as it did in Blender. Like I said, there's many other things you can do to make the texture look good. I'd have to really sit down with this one to kind of make it shine, because it's pretty lackluster at the moment. Not quite sure what I would do. I'd probably bake a few more texture types, to be honest. I probably spent about 30 minutes baking different textures till I got one just right. Or I do a combination of things. Man, it doesn't look bad. What does it look like in the game again? We got to remember too, this is using real ray tracing. Right? This isn't game rendering lighting. This is like real ray traced lighting. It's like, it don't get no better than that. Well, maybe other render engines render better than Blender, but my point is the game does not use these kind of lightings. I mean, it's just like the future of gaming. I mean, yeah, games use ray tracing now, but you know, it's kind of limited, really. So it's not going to look as good as Blender, is my point. I mean, it looks decent. It's not as great as Blender. Oh yeah, don't forget to turn on your anisotropic filtering. And like I said, to make a collision mesh for something like this, you just go up here to Inspector. Oh, I don't have my scene tree up. So you pick the slide, you go to Inspector. And if you don't have the Inspector or Material Editor, they are here in your window. Inspector, Material Editor, and Scene Tree. These are the three things I usually always leave open. Collision type, visible mesh final. Don't use visible mesh. That's extra computationally expensive. It'll even tell you if you use it. Hey, wait a minute. Why are you using visible collision? This is intentional. Please switch it back, for it is very computationally expensive, or something. I don't know. It says something like that. But anyway, yeah, you don't want to use that. Use that. Preferably, it's better if you have, I mean, I personally prefer to use the base 00 start 01 method for my collision meshes, where I just duplicate the object, or I make a lower poly model for the object for the collision mesh, because you don't want too many polys for your collision mesh, or you'll see where you put your car on it, or you'll run into something that has a lot of polys, and your performance will start to tank on you. You rebuild collisions, and you just move your car to here. like if you were one who, you know, you just spawned your car there and you're like, man, I just fell right through the thing. And you're like, you fell right through it. You mean like this? Like, no, hold on. That ain't what I'm trying to grab. Trying to turn it around. Trying to give you an example. So what you're saying that when you unspawned your car and you rebuilt collisions, you went right through it? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Then your normals were flipped. Then you'd go into Blender. If that was the case, you'd go to your object. You would go to edit mode. You would hit A to select all. Be sure they are flipped by going to overlays and saying show me face orientation. So if you were seeing this, for example, when you're looking at your object, it's red, then that's why. That means they're flipped. Hit A to select all, mesh, normal's flipped. But you say, well, what if I have like, I don't know, like a lot of these are red and a lot of these are blue and some are red and some are blue, and I'd say start over unless you got the patience to manually select every single one of them and flip them. It happens sometimes when you make things, especially if you're bending things and everything else and you're moving vertices all around, it can happen. But that would be how you would correct that, and you just re-export it if you're following through it. One last thing I'll show you. Oh, let me show you here too in the preferences. This is the Blender Kit online library. When you download this, you just go to install. Like you go to your add-ons, you go to install, you go to where you downloaded it, and you'll see Blender Kit. I'm using version 3.1.